We are learning a little bit more about the cause of rapper Coolio's death last year.
Late September 2022 in Los Angeles. The city lights still blazed brightly, but in a small apartment in Jefferson Park, a quiet tragedy was unfolding. A 911 emergency call reported that legendary rapper Coolio, the iconic voice behind Gangsta's Paradise, had collapsed in a friend's bathroom. Paramedics arrived immediately, but all efforts were in vain. In just a moment, a music monument fell silent. Almost instantly, the media flooded with shocking headlines: FBI finds, mysterious death in friend's apartment. Initial sources suggested he may have suffered a stroke. Even TMZ claimed no drugs or paraphernalia were found at the scene. However, the coroner's report, later published by AP News and the Los Angeles Times, revealed numerous drug-related items: burnt spoons, scorched foil powder-covered straws, and toxicology results pointed to the presence of fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine. What really happened in those final hours? Why is there a contradiction between the initial reports and the official findings? Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to uncover the full truth behind this shocking death. To truly grasp the tragedy of his final days, we need to go back to the starting point. A dusty childhood in Compton where a young boy with asthma nurtured a dream of escaping poverty through music. It was from that very origin that the full picture of Coolio begins to take shape, not just a legendary rapper, but a man marked by wounds, driven by dreams, and shaped by a life full of turbulence. Coolio, from little artist in Compton to the legend of Gangsta's Paradise. Some stories begin with dazzling stage lights, but originate from cramped, dusty streets where dreams are more often extinguished than nurtured. Coolio, a name etched deep into the memory of an entire generation of the 1990s, is one such story. Before becoming a Grammy-winning artist with the timeless hit Gangsta's Paradise, he was just an ordinary black boy living in a poor California neighborhood, facing the darkness that many children of his time never escaped. The journey from artist Leon Ivy Jr. to Coolio was not a miraculous leap, but a long stretch of days filled with cigarette smoke, street violence, and countless attempts to stay afloat in the face of adversity. And it was that fierce past that cultivated the soul of an artist strong enough to write lyrics that made the world stop and listen. Coolio was born on August 1, 1963 in Monessen, Pennsylvania, into a working-class family with no particular prominence. His father was a carpenter, and his mother worked as a production manager. When artist was just 8 years old, his parents divorced, and he moved with his mother to Compton, California, a place synonymous with poverty gangs and crime. In an environment where every step outside could mean witnessing a shooting or a violent confrontation, Artist's childhood was shadowed by fear. The house he shared with his mother wasn't one of abundance, but her toughness gave Artist a foundation, encouraging him to focus on school instead of getting pulled into Compton's vicious cycle. However, hardship didn't let go so easily. As a teenager, Artist began to show signs of being different. Intelligent but rebellious. Bookish, yet addicted early to rap, a genre that was just beginning to take shape in the black community. He suffered from severe asthma to the point of repeated hospitalizations. The illness made him smaller than his peers, and sometimes the target of bullying, but it also kept him indoors, immersed in books and writing. Perhaps those moments of breathlessness, of lungs tightening from asthma, planted in him a desire to speak, to breathe fully and freely on stage when given the chance. During his youth, Artist studied while working various manual jobs to support his family. He once volunteered as a firefighter and hustled at loading docks to earn money. Yet alongside those efforts, rap slowly took over his mind. In 1987, Artist joined the group WC and the Mod Circle, marking his first step into the exploding West Coast hip-hop scene. Before that, he had entered a few small local contests, making an impression with his fiery yet humorous rap style. The name Coolio emerged when friends jokingly called him Coolio Iglesias, a blend of the cool from rap and singer Julio Iglesias. The nickname stuck, eventually becoming his official stage name as his career began to rise. Despite his talent, Coolio didn't walk a red carpet to fame. He struggled with drug addiction, spent time in rehab, even served time in prison, and repeatedly tried to get back on his feet. These experiences became part of the lifeblood of his music. Coolio once admitted, "I've been through everything a black kid in Compton goes through. If I made it out, then I've got to tell that story." In the 1990s, as hip-hop exploded with names like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur, Coolio carved out a distinctive path. He didn't only rap about guns and gangs, he portrayed the pain and inner conflict of those trapped by society. From the start, Coolio caught attention with his unique wordplay and his ability to blend funk and soul into rap. In 1994, he released his debut album, It Takes a Thief. The track Fantastic Voyage unexpectedly climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and brought Coolio into the spotlight, selling millions of copies. Coolio wasn't just a rapper, he became a voice for those from similar backgrounds. People saw in him not only rebellion, but also a cry for help from a struggling community. A difficult childhood illness, a socially perilous environment, and his parents' divorce all forged Coolio's resilient character. He never hid his past, he turned it into artistic material. When Gangsta's Paradise was released in 1995, the song not only sold over 6 million copies worldwide and earned a prestigious Grammy, but became an anthem of a generation. It was the voice of someone who had stood at the edge, knew the feeling of being lost, and still had the strength to tell the story through words. Coolio once said, "I didn't set out to be a legend, I just set out to survive. But if surviving makes me a legend, then I'll accept that." That quote seems to encapsulate his entire childhood and rise. A sickly boy deprived of family happiness raised in gun-ridden Compton who turned it all into music that millions could hear and relate to. The image of Coolio with his chaotic braided hair and half-smirking, half-bitter smile will forever be tied to the public's memory. Behind that look was the same little boy named Artis, who once struggled for breath in a cramped room, who watched his parents part ways, and who used rap as a key to unlock the exit from the trap of poverty and despair. That not-so-sweet childhood, instead of killing his dream, became the spark that lit a brilliant career, and ultimately laid the foundation for Coolio to enter music history as an irreplaceable icon. Coolio's glorious career journey. After emerging from a rough childhood in Compton and carving out his own path in rap, Coolio entered the 1990s with the ambition to turn music into a weapon for telling his life story. While most rappers of the time immersed themselves in tracks saturated with guns and gang power, Coolio chose a different path. He didn't deny the harsh realities of the streets, but aimed to transform them into stories with more humanity and depth so that even those outside that world could relate. That difference is precisely what propelled Coolio into the ranks of global hip-hop's brightest stars. The first major breakthrough came with his 1994 album, It Takes a Thief. Under the Tommy Boy Records label, Coolio brought a refreshing new energy. The hit single Fantastic Voyage not only reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, but also sold over 1 million copies in the US alone. The music video featuring Coolio driving a car full of community members on a fantastic journey became a cultural symbol. With over 1 million albums sold and platinum certification, Coolio officially entered stardom, laying the foundation for even greater achievements to come. In 1995, Coolio released Gangsta's Paradise, his second studio album. The title track, written for the film Dangerous Minds, became a global phenomenon. With haunting lyrics and a melody borrowed from Stevie Wonder's Pastime Paradise, the song not only topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 consecutive weeks, but also became the best-selling single of 1995 in the US, with over 6 million copies sold worldwide. Coolio won a Grammy for Best Rap Solo Performance in 1996, marking the peak of his career. Interestingly, even Stevie Wonder, well known for being selective about the use of his music, gave permission, impressed by the powerful message Coolio conveyed in Gangsta's Paradise. This success was more than just a musical triumph. It was proof of Coolio's ability to blend mass appeal with social depth. The opening line, "As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," resonated with the fear and inner conflict of millions regardless of race or background. Within just a few years, the song was translated, covered, and featured everywhere, from studios and radio waves to films, turning Coolio into a global icon. Following Gangsta's Paradise, Coolio continued releasing other impressive hits. In 1996, 1 2 3 4 Somepin' New entered the Billboard Top 5, affirming that he wasn't a one-hit wonder. In 1997, See You When You Get There, which sampled the classic Canon in D, brought rap even closer to mainstream audiences, reaching the Billboard Hot 100 Top 15. By the late 1990s, Coolio had sold over 17 million records worldwide, an impressive feat in the pre-internet and pre-streaming era. What also set Coolio apart from many of his contemporaries was his versatility. He appeared on various TV shows and films, and even took part in humorous entertainment projects. He made appearances in sitcoms, reality shows, and left a particular mark with his cooking show, Cookin' with Coolio, in the late 2000s. Seeing a Grammy-winning rapper in the kitchen cooking and cracking jokes with the audience showed that he could break every mold. Coolio transformed himself into a multi-dimensional artist, both mainstream and relatable, making audiences feel he was from the streets but for every home. Coolio's influence extended beyond sales and charts. In July 2022, just months before his death, the Gangsta's Paradise video on YouTube surpassed 1 billion views, a powerful testament to the song's enduring legacy nearly 3 decades later. That number demonstrated that his music wasn't confined to the memory of the 1990s generation, it had reached the youth of the internet age as well. With more than 6 million monthly Spotify streams, Coolio's legacy continues to thrive. Another notable point is the respect Coolio earned from his peers. Michelle Pfeiffer-led actress in Dangerous Minds once emotionally shared that she was stunned and heartbroken upon hearing of his passing, as his song had elevated the film in ways she never imagined. Snoop Dogg, MC Hammer, and many other rappers paid tribute to him as a brother and a cultural icon. These tributes reflect the truth that Coolio left a lasting mark not only in music, but in the hearts of those who lived alongside him. Of course, Coolio's career wasn't all glamour. The 2000s saw a commercial decline. Later albums like Coolio.com 2001 and El Cool Magnifico 2002 didn't match the success of his 1990s work. But that didn't mean Coolio disappeared. He continued touring, staying connected with fans, and maintained a familiar presence on TV and stages. Looking at a career that spanned over 3 decades, it's clear he never truly left the spotlight. He simply transitioned from chart-topping star to enduring cultural icon. Coolio's career journey is a clear testament to the power of persistence. From a young man in Compton burdened by asthma, he rose to become a Grammy-winning artist, sold tens of millions of records, and continues to live on in public memory through YouTube and Spotify. That success didn't come overnight, it was the result of decades of struggle, creativity, and reinvention. For many, when Coolio is mentioned, the most familiar image remains the towering braids and the sound of Gangsta's Paradise echoing in Dangerous Minds. But looking deeper, his legacy goes far beyond a single hit. It proves that rap can both reflect gritty reality and reach universal artistry. And thanks to that, Coolio etched his name into history, not just as a rapper, but as a cross-generational pop culture icon. The sudden death. September 28, 2022. Los Angeles was bathed in sunlight just like any other ordinary day. No one could have anticipated that that afternoon would mark a tragic turning point in music history. As the news spread, Coolio, Grammy-winning rapper, had passed away. He didn't die on stage or during a grand performance, but inside a friend's modest apartment surrounded by 4 walls, a small bathroom, and an eerie, haunting silence. Late in the afternoon, the friend noticed Coolio had been in the bathroom far too long without emerging. A sense of unease set in. He knocked on the door and called out, no response. The door creaked open, revealing a scene no one ever wishes to witness: Coolio motionless on the bathroom floor. The friend immediately called 911. Paramedics arrived quickly and performed CPR for nearly 45 minutes. But every effort was in vain. The Gangsta's Paradise legend was pronounced dead at the scene at around 4:49 p.m. that day. The news spread at lightning speed. Initially, the explanation was simple: it might have been a heart attack. Former manager Jarez Posey also suggested that his friend had possibly collapsed due to natural causes. Media outlets citing TMZ reported that no drugs or drug paraphernalia were found in the bathroom. In that moment, the public found some comfort in thinking Coolio had passed from heart disease, a sad but at least dignified end, free from the shadow of drugs that had plagued the rap world so many times before. But the truth is never as simple as the early headlines. That very evening, the Los Angeles Police Department's crime scene investigators arrived at the apartment to conduct a full examination. Every detail from the living room to the bedroom was thoroughly scrutinized. And it was there that the first discoveries began to paint a very different picture. Inside several bags believed to belong to Coolio, investigators found surprising evidence: plastic straws, scorched metal spoons, singed aluminum foil plastic bags containing brown powder and saline solution, all familiar tools for drug use. This discovery immediately shifted the direction of the investigation. Outside the apartment, the shocking news rippled through the artistic community. Snoop Dogg posted a photo of the two performing together with a brief farewell. MC Hammer called Coolio a dear friend, a brother. Michelle Pfeiffer, lead actress in Dangerous Minds, expressed her heartbreak upon learning that the man who helped catapult the film to massive success was gone too soon. An entire generation of fans, those who grew up with Gangsta's Paradise, suddenly realized their childhood idol had vanished forever. The mourning public wasn't just grieving, they were curious. They wanted to know exactly what had happened inside that friend's apartment. How could a 59-year-old artist, still actively touring and performing, suddenly collapse in a bathroom? The fragmented theories of heart disease and sudden illness weren't enough to dispel the growing doubt. Speculation began swirling, and countless theories took shape. While rumors spread, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office began an autopsy and toxicology analysis. It was a process that would take months, but it was the only way to answer the question what really caused Coolio's death. In the meantime, the public only knew scattered details. He had heart problems, battled severe asthma, and continued smoking. All of these could weaken the body and contribute to a sudden demise. At the same time, the media revisited his turbulent life, from a sickly child in Compton to a rapper who sold over 17 million records, and later a television personality with a cooking show. These glimpses only deepened the pain. A cultural icon, someone who had once overcome adversity, had ultimately collapsed alone in a friend's apartment. In the following months, friends, family, and fans waited anxiously for the official results. The funeral was held privately without fanfare, reflecting the humble nature Coolio had in real life. But the press wouldn't stop digging, posing questions, and even spinning wild theories about the FBI conspiracies and mysterious hands tampering with the scene. All of it created a whirlwind of chaotic rumors. In reality, no one knew the full truth at the time. Only one thing was certain: Coolio's death was not an ordinary ending. It was sudden, shocking, and left a void in the hearts of fans. People remembered his towering braids, that half-defiant smile, and the melodies that once echoed across the globe. And they wondered, was the spotlight too heavy, leaving Coolio worn down on the inside until he could no longer carry its weight? Looking back on September 28, 2022, what haunts most isn't the sensational headlines or the spiraling conspiracy theories, but the strange, unnatural silence of that bathroom. Just an ordinary room, yet it became the place where a legend's life came to an end. From that moment on, the world lost a voice that defined a generation, and music once again witnessed the fragile nature of those who stand at the summit of fame. Lingering questions surrounding Coolio's death. As news of Coolio's death spread, the public quickly split into two camps. One believed this was simply the natural passing of a 59-year-old man with a history of heart disease and asthma. The other was skeptical, sensing that something remained unsaid. That skepticism only deepened as more details from the friend's apartment emerged. What initially appeared to be a case of sudden cardiac arrest began to transform into a controversial mystery. When investigators arrived to examine the apartment, they noted multiple discrepancies with the initial reports. In the first few hours, the media claimed there were no drugs or paraphernalia at the scene. However, the official investigation told a different story. In the living room, they found 3 plastic bags believed to belong to Coolio, containing items commonly associated with drug use. A burnt stainless steel spoon, singed aluminum foil, powder-coated plastic straws, saline solution, and even a small bag of brown powder. These pieces of evidence strongly suggested that Coolio may have used substances not long before his death. This instantly shifted the direction of the investigation from natural causes to a drug-related incident. In truth, Coolio was no stranger to the shadows of drug use. In the past, he had battled addiction and even spent time in rehab. But in the years that followed, he remained active, touring, appearing on TV, and even producing a cooking show, leading many to believe he had left that past behind. That's why the discovery of paraphernalia and suspected substances at the scene stunned the public. It raised a troubling question: had he ever truly escaped his old demons, or had he always been trapped in a cycle with no way out? The suspicions didn't end there. When the coroner's report was released in April 2023, the full picture became both clearer and more shocking. The official cause of death was a combined effect of fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine. The report clearly labeled it an accidental overdose. Yet contributing factors included cardiomyopathy, a heart condition, severe asthma, and a long-term smoking habit. Together, these conditions turned Coolio's body into a ticking time bomb. Even a small dose of stimulants would have been enough to overwhelm his already compromised heart and lungs, leading to sudden collapse. Still, the public wasn't ready to accept it. Many felt something darker was at play. Conspiracy theories began to surface. Had someone staged the scene? Why did the initial reports claim no drugs were found while the final report listed so many items? Some even linked the FBI, suggesting that Coolio's death was tied to hidden deaths or shadowy figures. YouTube channels and blogs fueled the fire-weaving stories that Coolio had been silenced for knowing too much or had fallen victim to drug lords. These theories spread quickly, especially in a U.S. climate shaken by the ongoing fentanyl crisis. But looking at the facts, there was no evidence of FBI involvement or foul play. All official documentation showed the investigation was carried out by local police and the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office. The physical evidence, from drug paraphernalia to toxicology results, pointed to one clear scenario: Coolio had ingested multiple substances at once, and his already frail health could not withstand it. The discrepancies between early reports and the final conclusion were not signs of conspiracy, but simply the result of standard procedure. Initial impressions at a scene often change after forensic analysis and lab testing. It's also understandable why people would rather believe in conspiracies than in a simple tragic truth. Coolio wasn't just an artist, he was an icon to an entire generation. The death of such a figure is hard to accept if it can be summed up by the word accident. They wanted a more dramatic narrative, a secret hand, a theory that would soften the blow. But sometimes the cruel truth is all that remains: a man bearing too many physical and emotional wounds, who ultimately couldn't escape the trap he had fought so hard against. The coroner's final conclusion closed the case. Coolio died from an overdose of fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine compounded by underlying heart disease and asthma. There was no sign of homicide, no federal criminal element, and no FBI involvement. Still, the scene details the initial reporting gaps, and Coolio's legendary status all contributed to prolonged controversy. What remains above all is a timeless message. Coolio's story is not just the private pain of one artist, it's a societal wake-up call about the dangers of drugs, especially fentanyl, which has claimed tens of thousands of American lives each year. It's a reminder that behind the glittering stage lights, artists are still human, vulnerable, sick under pressure, and sometimes they fall. Coolio once overcame a brutal childhood to become a star, but in the end he was undone by a familiar temptation. And it is that contradiction, the collision of glory and tragedy, that makes his story more than a coroner's report. It becomes a lesson in humanity for us all. A timeless message. Coolio's death did not merely close the life of a talented artist, it opened up broader societal conversations about health, drugs, the loneliness of fame, and how the public perceives its idols. This wasn't some dramatic murder mystery despite the conspiracies circulating on social media. It was a real-life, even raw story about the fragility of human beings, even those who once stood atop the world. From this sorrow emerged timeless messages, not just for artists but for an entire generation still grappling with similar challenges. The first message is a clear warning about drugs, especially fentanyl, the so-called silent killer that has plagued America in recent years. According to statistics, over 71,000 fentanyl and synthetic opioid-related deaths were recorded in the U.S. in 2021 alone. When Coolio's name became linked to fentanyl in the coroner's report, the public was stunned. After all, if someone who had overcome a tumultuous youth, found great success, and was still active in his craft couldn't escape this deadly trap, then anyone could be a victim. Coolio became a vivid and heartbreaking reminder that drugs do not discriminate by status, wealth, or fame. The second message concerns the physical and mental health of artists. Figures like Coolio are often seen basking in spotlight, performing for thousands, appearing on television, selling millions of records. But few know that behind the applause stood a body worn down by age, illness, and immense psychological pressure. Coolio had lived with asthma his whole life, and the coroner's report also confirmed he had cardiomyopathy. These conditions meant every breath and every heartbeat could be a struggle. Still, he pushed himself to maintain his career, to meet fans' expectations, and to hold his ground in a ruthless industry. That's a price not everyone sees. Third, Coolio's death exposed the dark side of fame. In today's society, the public often demands perfection from their idols. Strength, flawlessness, no mistakes. But the truth is, artists are human too, with all their weaknesses, faults, and occasional downfalls. Coolio once said he never aimed to be a legend, only to survive. After his passing, those words echoed more powerfully than ever. They remind us that sometimes simply surviving in the music industry is a triumph in itself. Fourth, Coolio's story prompts reflection on the media's responsibility. Headlines like FBI finds or the viral conspiracy theories didn't just distort the truth, they hurt his family and tarnished his legacy. Instead of spreading baseless speculation, perhaps the focus should be on his musical heritage and the real lessons from his life. After all, the public doesn't need a Hollywood script for Coolio's death. They need the truth to better understand the world we live in, the fentanyl crisis, artists' mental health, and the value of human support and empathy. Fifth, the timeless message lives on in Coolio's music itself. Gangsta's Paradise wasn't just the most successful rap song of 1995, it became a hymn of fear, alienation, and the longing to escape darkness. 27 years later, when Coolio passed away, that song played everywhere as a final farewell, reminding the world that his legacy endures. That is the power of art to transform personal pain into a collective voice. And in this case, it became a bridge through which people remember Coolio not as a victim of drugs, but as an artist who left behind an unforgettable mark. Ultimately, Coolio's death is a mirror reflecting the fragility of the American dream. From a sickly boy in Compton, he rose to become a global superstar, only to collapse in a friend's tiny bathroom. His story is beautiful, tragic, and poignant all at once. It reminds us that success is no shield against life's everyday tragedies. And perhaps the greatest message from his passing is this: cherish every breath, care for both your physical and mental health, and treat those around you with greater compassion, because we never truly know what silent battles they may be fighting. Coolio is gone, but his music never fell silent. Every time the melody of Gangsta's Paradise plays, people don't just remember a classic rap anthem. They remember the life story of a man who rose from darkness, lived fully through his art, and left behind a lasting warning for generations to come. That is the timeless message, a message that will continue to echo not through hollow conspiracies, but through music, through memory, and through conversations about how humans survive and overcome adversity. If you found this story meaningful, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss upcoming videos. Let's keep the memory of legends like Coolio alive together.